friends, Heidi here from Rain Country. God is good all the time, and I'm here today for another What is Dehydrating this week. So we're middle of May, and I got a bunch of herbs and a couple other things sitting here that I'm going to be putting on the dehydrator. I actually already have one dehydrator running out there from yesterday that I had started yesterday. I always unplug them at night, especially since they're running off solar power. I don't want to drain my batteries overnight. So out there I've got peppermint. Peppermint is something I'm dehydrating, well, and my other mints, but predominantly the peppermint I dehydrate pretty much every day because we not only do we have a lot, we go through a lot during the year because we love peppermint tea in the evening or peppermint tea blends. I will blend it with all kinds of different herbs and have come up with some wonderful recipes, you know, with peppermint with nettle, peppermint with thyme and dandelions, and I do have a tea recipe coming out very soon. So anyway, I'm going to go ahead and talk you through some of the herbs I have going on, plus a few other questions that I get. The first question I'm going to cover is the dehydrator. I get a lot of people that are coming in that are totally new to dehydrating and are wondering what is the best dehydrator to get. Well, I've only used one brand of dehydrator in the 20 years that I've been dehydrating foods, but I have heard a lot of great things about Excalibur. Everyone I know that has an Excalibur has just raved about it and say they love it. However, I have no experience with that in myself. I considered years ago getting one even though I already had a Nesco, but I decided I really liked the way the Nesco worked. It has its own benefits. It may not be as efficient in some ways, but it can be equally as efficient if you learn how to use it properly. So the Nesco is a lot less expensive than the Excalibur. Now, I'm sure investing in an Excalibur, you're probably going to be getting your money's worth, just like me investing in the Country Living grain mill, which was expensive, but it is built like a tank and I love it. So, and same thing with your All-American canner. I definitely recommend, if you can afford it, going with that. But let me tell you a little story. My first Nesco dehydrator was actually had a different brand name on it, but it's the same company that makes it. I actually won it at an auction. It was brand new. I only paid $30 total for it for top bid. And brand new, never even been taken out of the box. I'm thinking that dehydrator has got to be at least 20 years old, and it still works. The only reason I don't use it anymore is one, the base that you set the trays on. That thing finally just busted up so badly it just wasn't even, I couldn't even use it anymore. But I still have a great motor and all the racks that came with it. And so I am reserving that motor as a backup. Now the other three Nesco dehydrators I have, I bought all of them at garage sales, and I know I paid $3 for one, $5 for the other. The $5 one was brand new, never been used. The $3 one had been used maybe once or twice. You can tell barely. And then because they discolor over time, and so that's one way I can tell. And then the other one was somewhere in that price range. It was either $3 or $4. I don't think I paid as much as $5 for the other one. So I got 3 dehydrators for under $15 that were all virtually brand new. And so plus with that, I got a whole bunch of racks. Now, in the years of using the Nesco, I have come up with ways to make it more efficient. Now, one of the things I like about the Nesco is you can actually stack it to 12 trays high. They don't recommend it going higher than that. Now, personally, I don't like going that high because it really slows everything down. That's why I'd rather have 3 dehydrators running up to 8 racks tops. Usually 6 is what I like to shoot for, but depending on what I have going on in there, if there are things that dehydrate quickly, I don't mind going up to 8 racks per dehydrator. And then the other thing is, because the heating element is on the top, now some people would, people with an Excalibur would say, well, that's what makes it less efficient. But you can use that to make it more efficient. The fact that the heat and the fan is coming down from the top rather than coming in from the side and directing at all of the racks at the same time. If you're dehydrating various things, you can set your temperature. Let's say if all I've got in there are herbs. Then I'm going to set my temperature at 110 degrees and then remove the top racks as the things on the top get dry. And then you keep, what happens is then that motor and that heating element and fan keeps getting moved down another rack, thus drying out the next rack a little bit quicker. So that's one way. Some people rotate their racks. I would rather just take them off like this. I find it, and just instead of rotating it all day long, just go through there, pull off a rack, deal with those herbs. But as in the case as today, my top rack is going to be having citrus peels on there. I can dehydrate citrus peels at a higher temperature, so I'm going to be setting it at 115, and then the racks underneath will have my herbs in varying degrees depending on their delicacy. So the least delicate herbs, like I would say the comfrey, will go on the next rack, and then let's say the oregano will go on the next rack down, and so on. I would put the lemon balm on and the echinacea on the bottom racks. And as the heat cools as it comes down, and so it's not going to be as hot as it gets down to the bottom racks, but it's still going to dry them efficiently. So I usually put, like my pansies, for example. I've got some pansies here. I'm still only getting a few a day, but I pick them every day. And as the spring and summer go on, I should be able to get lots more as my plants bush out. That's one of the things about the herbs, like flowers, for instance. If you keep up on them, it'll keep making more flowers. That's really important to know. The more you pick them, the more they'll produce, because you're taking all the seeds. Well, then it's going to have to make more seed. And so that's why it will keep making more flowers. So these will go on the very bottom rack with my dandelion flowers that I'll go out later today and pick, because it's still fairly early enough in the day that not all my dandelions are opened yet, and I like to wait until they're fully opened, and then I'll put them on here, and they by the end of the day they'll be just as dry as the orange peels on top. Oh, and if you're interested in learning about these, I get questions about them all the time. I did make a video on how I made them. Super easy. Yes, I made them myself. Very inexpensive. Just recycled sheets that I bought from a garage sale. You want to look for 100% cotton. You want it very natural, but this keeps small things from falling through, as well as helps protect your food from being, and your herbs from being exposed to so much plastic. And then another thing I harvested today was some thyme, and I think I talked about this in another video, so it might not seem new as far as this year's, what I'm dehydrating so far, because I've been putting up some thyme already. Oh my goodness, I love the smell of this. But even if I did already talk about it in a previous dehydrating video from this year, I wanted to talk about it again, as well as the oregano that I'll be putting on. So you see I'm piling this because thyme dehydrates quickly. I'm piling this on here pretty high. I'm going to put all of the thyme on the same tray. I'm not going to worry about separating it out. You see how high that is? This will dry great just like that, because the thyme sits on there very loosely. I'm not taking it all off the stems, so the stems kind of keeps having those stems in there keeps more airflow. And then once they're dehydrated, I then strip the leaves off the stems, and some of the smaller stems I'll throw in there. But you want to keep, if you're using your thyme for seasoning, then you really want to try to keep your stems out of there. Now, if you're going to use your thyme for making medicinal tinctures or extracts or teas, then it's okay to keep the stems in there, because as long as they're fully dry, no big deal. And the stems on thyme do dehydrate up quickly as well, so that makes it a bonus that way. Pile on my oregano. I just started on the oregano, and when I harvest my oregano and my thyme, both of these are herbs I like to use scissors and just mow them down. I tried to get video clip, but I didn't. It was kind of hard to do because I didn't take my stand out there with me. So the video clip where I'm showing cutting it here is that's not really how I do it, because it looks kind of lame. Usually I grab onto it and just mow it down, just like I'm doing a haircut, and just cut it pretty much flat. I'll do the same thing with my mints and my lemon balm, and I'll put a little video clip here of me cutting the lemon balm. I have tons of oregano from previous years. This is the Mediterranean oregano, which is going to be a lot hotter, and I love oregano in my Italian cooking. I had been dehydrating up tons of it and just not working through it near as fast for a couple of reasons I'll talk about in a minute. So right here, I actually still have a jar, still sealed, from 2015 oregano, a quart jar full. And I haven't opened it up yet, but I'm sure it still smells fresh, because here's one from 2017 that unfortunately didn't stay sealed, but even though it didn't stay sealed, that's why I like to put the lids on tight, is I did open this up and and it still has a wonderful, very strong smell, like I just dehydrated it this year. So I'm not concerned. I really don't concern myself too much about the herbs if they lose the seal. I prefer it that they kept their seal, but I've never had issues with herbs that have lost their seal and even sitting for a couple of years. Like this is 3 years old, still good. But here's what I plan on doing. I haven't been dehydrating as much oregano the last couple of years because I knew I still had a lot to work through. However, with the oregano and the thyme, now that I'm getting tons of thyme in, yet I still have like a whole bunch of dried thyme that I bought from Star West, I think, on Amazon, I have plans to work through this. So I'm going to be dehydrating a lot of oregano up this year so I can have a more fresh, because no matter what, the fresher it is, the better the flavor is going to be anyway. So here's my plan. With the oregano and the thyme that I have, since I'm getting a lot of my own and I love the flavor of it so much better and it tastes so much better, what I'm going to be doing with the excess oregano and thyme from previous years or store-bought is I'm going to start adding that into, which I've actually already done with some store-bought oregano. Now I can move on to my own home-dried oregano. I'm going to start adding it into my chicken feed, because those dried thyme and oregano, they are anti-parasitic, antifungal, antibacterial, and antiviral. And you just sprinkle that in, mix it in with their chicken feed, and it's super good. Now I got this idea, this is why I have those books sitting there so I wouldn't forget, from Amy Fuell's book that I got I think it was a year ago I got it. Yeah, it was last spring, I believe I got it. So her Natural Chicken Keeping Handbook. So if you have chickens and you're very much into natural, organic type care for your chickens, this book is a must. I highly recommend it. I will be linking it in the description box down below. Don't forget to click on Show More or that little gray arrow just below the video itself. And along with that, while you're at it, this is my #1 favorite herb book that I have, and so this one is always linked in my description box, but I'll make sure to move that link up to the top right next to this other one. I recommend them both. And so anyway, this book here was a lifesaver to me last summer when one of my chickens got very, very ill. I was able to go to her book and find some natural things. I had to come up with my own recipe because I didn't have everything on hand that she had in here, but I had some of it and I needed to deal with it right away. I didn't have time to order the herb or whatever. So, but it did spur me into growing chicory, and that's why I'm trying out chicory this year. And anyway, I did a video on that, on how my chicken got really sick and how I cured her, basing it off of Amy's book and her recipes there. So I will link to that video down below as well if you're interested. That's something you can do to use up some of your older herbs, especially your herbs that you're wanting to use for cooking and you really want a strong flavor. Well, now you can take your older herbs. They're still going to be good, but use them up by adding them to your chicken feed, or just start making a lot of tea out of them or whatever, or make your tinctures and extract. On to one of my very favorite herbs that I grow for culinary purposes, but it does also have very many health benefits, and also is the reason I don't go through the other oregano as fast, is the golden oregano. Oh my gosh, the smell, the appearance, the flavor is amazing. A lot of people grow it because of its beauty, because it adds this beautiful chartreuse kind of lime green color to the garden, and it spreads and makes a beautiful ground cover. The taste of oregano, but not that hot flavor, much sweeter, much more mild, and to me more aromatic. I've made teas out of it. I bake and I cook with it quite a bit. Here is my golden oregano dried up from last year, and it's still, even though this is last year's, it still has a wonderful smell. It just adds just a really nice flavor to food. So you still get that oregano flavor, but it's just a little more mild, not as hot as your Mediterranean, which I still love, especially in my Italian sauces. I still use this. Oftentimes though, I might use a blend of the two. But this more mild golden oregano goes better in certain other meals where you might not want the more pungent oregano in. So this one gets used quite a bit. And yeah, anyway, I recommend it if you're not growing it yet. Anytime you're looking for something, if you can't find it at your local nursery, just ask them. Just ask them, hey, can you order this up? I will buy it if you will order this up. And they will look it up for you. They can't always get everything, different nurseries. It's always worth a try, especially when you're starting with your local business first. One more thing I want to say about the oregano, I almost forgot about the golden oregano, is that when you cut it back, what you're going to see is the tops of it will be very light colored like this, but as you get towards the bottom, you're going to see darker leaves. And so once you cut it, it's going to look a lot darker on the bottom. Don't worry about that. The only reason that is unlike other plants that when they get sun, they turn a darker green, golden oregano turns brighter when it gets sun. And when it's not getting sun, it stays a darker color. So that just simply means the leaves on the bottom just didn't get as much sun exposure because they were on the bottom. So now that you got it cut down, those leaves will get a lot of sun and thus they will turn this brighter color as well. The lemon balm stems are, the nice thing about them is that they are fine and so they dehydrate up real quickly. Oregano, a lot of your oregano ones, the Mediterranean oregano is a lot like peppermint. You'll get some pretty thick stalks. I just do the same thing with those as I do with the thyme. I just let them dry like that and then I go strip the leaves off the stems. If the stems still have moisture in them, they're not fully dry. A lot of times, depending on what the herb is, like if it's peppermint, I set the stems aside and then I'll make tea out of those stems at night. And I don't worry about putting them back on the racks and allowing them to dehydrate because I make peppermint tea almost every single night, especially this time of year. Okay, now for a couple of newer things for this week. Some of the things I've talked about are new. Some of them I've already been dehydrating for a while. And this one you're going to want to be more careful with. To start with are strawberry leaves. Now you'll see I only have a few strawberry leaves. Why? Because my strawberries are getting flowers right now. I don't want to over harvest the leaves on the strawberries. And I didn't pick from all of my strawberry plants, only like 3 or 4 of them. And I only took one 3-leaf cluster off of each plant. And the reason why is that will do 2 things. That will help stimulate more growth to the plant and to the strawberries themselves, but you don't want to over harvest the leaves because obviously the berries need those leaves collecting the nutrients to help them to grow. I usually don't do heavy-handed strawberry leaf harvesting until after the strawberries come on and you really start seeing that explosion of leaves and runners and so on and so forth. That's usually when I get busy, but I wanted to take a few off now to help stimulate more growth on the plants themselves. So I got a few here. Now I do have, if you're interested in why I would dehydrate strawberry leaves, I have a video on that I will link to down below. The number one things these go in is my mixed greens blend, and yes, you can eat them either totally dried or totally raw, not anywhere in between. You don't want to go eat a partially dried strawberry leaf. Then the other thing that's new this week, even though my Echinacea plants are still rather on the small side, I do like getting started early picking off some of the leaves here and there that will stimulate more leaf growth and bigger leaf growth because I use the leaves quite a bit. In fact, the flavor of the leaves raw is, I find actually pretty tasty. And it is very good for you and has many benefits. Now, I believe I have a video just on Echinacea and its benefits that I will go ahead and link to down below. Yes, you can use the Echinacea leaves. You don't have to just use the roots. In fact, I've yet to use the roots from my own Echinacea plants, but I do use the leaves and the flower. I've used them in my pain remedies and in my natural antibiotic. And I've made teas out of them and just all kinds of great stuff. And yes, you could even add them to salads if you want. I just put them in there very lightly. But mostly for me, These are going to be these are reserved for medicinal purposes. And then of course the other thing I'm not really going to dehydrate much of today, but I brought these in just to talk about them, is comfrey. Now comfrey leaves will get quite large. They can get like this. Mine aren't to that point yet where they're that big, but they will. And one of the things you can do to help encourage more big leaf growth is snap off some of the upper stems when they start budding out and getting flowers on them. Just like with pretty much any herb, that will help encourage it to get more and bigger leaves that you can then harvest and use. So that was the main reason I did this, was to do that with my plants. Now I've got a couple pictures here I just took of my comfrey plants. I have several comfrey plants. A couple of them are growing around my peach tree and my plum tree, because growing comfrey at the base of your fruit trees is very good for the trees. When they die back, they nourish the soil, but while they're growing, they also help protect the soil and keep it from drying out, so that will also retain moisture. So that's why I grow them around there. Plus it looks really pretty, especially when they're in bloom. Make sure you don't snap off all of your flowers. Leave some for the bees. Bees absolutely love comfrey, especially the bumblebee. I don't have a video specifically talking about the comfrey, but I've used it in many things, and I talk about it in a few other videos, like one that recently published about my healing salve. I've also used it as a soak for when I broke my toe last summer. Excellent. So this combined with arnica and a couple other herbs was very, very helpful in healing that broken toe a lot quicker than, I mean, I've broken that same toe before in ballet, and it took a long time for it to heal up. It took pretty much the whole year, but this healed up like quickly. I think within a month it was healed up, but I could walk on it no problem within a week. So it was really a wonderful thing. Things I wish I would have known years ago. Okay, well, I hope you're enjoying this little series I'm doing this year on dehydrating herbs and other things, and that is helping you to learn what you can dehydrate and how to do it and the benefits of it and so on. So more of these to come. Thanks for watching. Take care and God bless.